UNLV faces an incredibly interesting opponent in Sam Houston in Week 1. They're a team with a lot of questions. We're a team with a lot of questions. Vegas doesn't quite know what to do with this line as it keeps dropping. I'm very honored to have a guest, Fobs, to help me break it all down. This is the Let's Run podcast. Folks, welcome to the show today. Very happy, grateful. I always look for fans of other type of people who talk about teams to come on the show. And, I didn't look super hard for Sam Houston, and that's my mistake because there is an excellent creator in Lane Fobs. Fobs, thank you so much for coming on to the show today. I really appreciate it. And guys, if you are not subscribed to the YouTube channel, I would really appreciate if you could drop a subscription to the Let's Run podcast. And if you like this video, because we're going to have awesome guests like Lane on and all season, and we're going to be talking about some really fun teams. Thank you so much for coming on to the show today. How are you feeling today, man?
Dude, I'm excited, man. Tomorrow we really get into some more college football. I'm going to be at the day job tomorrow, and Boise State is going to kick it off. I'm going to be winding down the day. That is incredible. So I'm just glad that it's back. And then UNLV, Las Vegas is coming down to H-Town, so that's going to be cool too.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the first thing that I want to ask you about. So not a lot of Rebel fans know this, but Sam Houston is currently doing a renovation of their stadium. As they've made this transition up to FBS. They flashed some really great stuff last season. Obviously, coaches leave and players leave, but I think when you show that you can be good for a season, obviously there's a lot of potential there. So tell me about this renovation that Sam Houston's doing, and where is this game actually being played?
So Bauer Stadium, which only seats about 11,000 people in Huntsville, Texas, about an hour and a half to 2 hours north of Houston. That's Sam Houston's home traditionally. That's undergoing renovation this year. So they're coming down to Houston. They're going to hop I-45 down south and play at Shell Energy Arena. Now, they're going to be the third tenant there this year. The Houston Dynamo of MLS play there. Texas Southern HBCU team out of the SWAC, they play there as well. And for this one shining year, Sam Houston is going to join them. So that is where any Rebel fans making the trip will see the game. And interestingly enough, to add more chaos, there's construction down there, and an Astros game is going to be happening at the same time.
How many people are going to be at this game? I mean, it's not close to the state. I mean, are we expecting it? Because I don't know how good Sam Houston's attendance was last season when they were really competitive in CUSA. Are you expecting crowds? I mean, this is because their first game of the season was at Western Kentucky, correct? And so this is their first home game, right?
Right. And it's interesting when Sam Houston plays in Houston against an opponent people care about. Their traditional rival, one of the bigger ones is Stephen F. Austin, which they don't play anymore. When they play that at NRG where the Texans play, people show up. People go. The problem with this one is, everyone knows when that type of a game happens. I haven't seen any billboards. I haven't seen any push within the city from the school to say, hey, we're here. And everyone keeps asking, what do you expect? I may be wrong, but I'm hovering somewhere around 5,000, maybe, Now maybe UNLV, some of the fans, maybe they moved to Texas and Houston and surprise, but I'm not expecting great crowds. They're okay at Bowers when it's a nice setup, especially those Wednesday night games. Surprisingly, have a little more energy than you would think. But this one's gonna be a rough go this year for them, I think, as far as the attendance and buzz.
Yeah, I mean, especially after, I guess this is kind of the next thing I want to ask you. After, having a good season last year, which I really respected. Again, I said this earlier in one of my earlier shows, but, I saw Sam Houston in their first season when they transitioned to the FBS. I was there for their first ever game when they played in Lavelle Edwards Stadium in Provo. That was the 2023 season. And Sam Houston, which I thought they were not a good team that year. They finished 3-9, but again, they're transitioning to FBS. And I was impressed with the defense. I thought that, especially early on, that they held a BYU team. That BYU team wasn't great, but only to 14, they only 14 points was given up in that. They did pretty well against Air Force. And ultimately, that team kind of faltered. But last season, Sam Houston really took off, and they finished 10-3. They beat Georgia Southern, a very good Sun Belt team. They beat Liberty in a really exciting game to end the season, although it wasn't super high scoring. Besides if they would have just beaten, that Western Kentucky game, and you look back at that Jacksonville State game, especially, but 10-3, I mean, that's a great season. And then a lot of the players and coaches leave. So do you feel like there's a little bit of a come down? Do you felt like in that Western Kentucky game had kind of a weird feel to it? Are you worried about there being a bit of a come down after that great season? And UNLV is experiencing the exact same thing. We were a game away from the college football playoff last season. And I feel like maybe, well, these are all new players anyway, so it's hard to come down when it's a whole new thing. But how do you think the state of Sam Houston football is right now?
I think that there is a bit of a come down, because right after you win, all these guys go to different places. You know what I'm saying? Caleb Weaver, you can see him at, I believe, I want to say Duke. There's a guy at Virginia Tech, Chris Murray at Auburn. A lot of these are all defensive guys who left. The top 16 tacklers are gone. Pretty much all of your playmakers are no longer there defensively, and you lose your coach. In comes Phil Longo, who had been fired from Wisconsin as their offensive coordinator. So there's a come down, but there's also a strange sense of optimism too, because for as kind of sloppily as the program handled Phil Longo's hiring, you bring him in, he gets started after the December signing period, which is why he's got to bring in so many guys so late. The team looks fairly functional, and people keep asking me, what is the win total going to be? About 5 wins. I peg it at 5. The over-under is 4.5. 5 wins to me says, okay, something is there, but there's going to be still room for improvement. And I think the Western Kentucky game encapsulated that.
Yeah, when I've gone through the tape of that, I've seen a lot of things that I like. I mean, they did have a couple of, there was a special teams play, and there was, a few things that, again, week 0 shenanigans. Everybody has weird crap in week 0, as UNLV saw when we looked like we were. Our week 0 game felt like an open scrimmage, which we kind of sneaked in, like we weren't really supposed to be there. Yeah. And everybody, from the very beginning, our entire crowd, because we gave up 31 points to stinking Idaho State. And from the very beginning, the crowd was just ticked. Everybody was so frustrated. Like, what the heck are you guys doing? We're paying like $4 million a year to Dan Mullen, 3-time New Year's Six. Well, it was crazy. Everybody was ticked from the beginning. So it really didn't feel like a very positive, even though we did win. At the end of the day, you should never apologize for winning, even in any sport. I mean, if you win, you win. And right. if you're going to be bad and you're going to lose, you're going to be bad and you're going to lose. So I liked a lot of things that I saw from in that Western Kentucky tape. I think there's some good stuff here with this Sam Houston roster. And I think there's some real talent. And I guess it would start with your quarterback. Tell me what you think about him with Watson. He seems like he can run. He's got, not a ton of passing yards, 209, but I mean, enough, and, didn't get a touchdown, and had an interception, but I thought that really wasn't his fault. That was more kind of the play calling. What do you think about him? Do you think he's a star? Or do you think he could become a star? I mean, how do you feel?
It's interesting with Hunter Watson. His game is, if he can tuck it and run and be a bruiser, that's what he's gonna do. But he can also pass. People always ask me, and I always try to temper my broadcasts and newsletters with, hey, I'm not the attack Hunter Watson guy. It was just for me in the offseason. Here in comes Phil Longo. He wants a more passing attack, not quite the air raid label that he gets. But to me, that says, okay, he wants to run more tempo. Hunter Watson's never really ran that. So I always questioned how he would look in this system, but he looked pretty well. I was impressed with some of the things he did. The thing that impressed me most that he did against Western Kentucky was mastering the timing and the tempo. He was able to keep that offense going. If you look at some of that tape, you'll notice that a lot of times they did not work deep into the play clock. They were, all right, it's about 8 seconds in, let's get it. Now, what slowed that down was the offensive line that kind of, created penalties, made a lot of mistakes blocking wise and things. But I don't mind Hunter Watson. I think he's a guy you can win with. What Phil Longo wants him to do, and I'm going to write in my newsletter, he wants him to be more of a ball distributor. Yes, Hunter Watson is the runner, but Phil Longo talked about it this week, the head coach for Sam. I want him giving out the ball more. Now we'll do what we can to get more of the playmakers out there. They're going to run more receivers and more guys at running back, but that's what we want him to do. Get a few runs because that's what you like. But last year he did that, and injured shoulder, missed chunks of the season. And Longo alluded to that yesterday. He doesn't want to see that. So I like Watson. There are things he needs to clean up. This is the game for me that is going to kind of help start to cement really where he is during the season. Can he make those changes? Can he clean up from game 1 to game 2 when they say you make the most progress?
Yeah, I mean, he ran for 91 yards, and I thought he was very physical and tough. When he was and he was decisive. I didn't think he was, kind of on his back foot. I thought when he was going to run, he was going to run, and that was really smart. And showed some signs of maturity as a player. Do you expect them to try and run that back? I mean, would you be surprised? I'd say, let me give you 80 yards if over or under on Watson rushing yards, because I feel like our defense, they're not gonna have a spy on him. Like, I feel like he'll have a chance to do it. Do you think he'll go over or under?
Man, is push an option?
Yeah, I gave you a tough number on purpose, because if I said 90, I feel like that's pretty tough. And I was like, I was going to say 75 to really put you on the corner there.
Yeah.
If
80, I'll definitely go under, only because they're intending to get a few more running backs involved. And a lot of what Watson was trying to do with those runs that came on some of these 3rd and longs, making some of these mistakes. So I would expect a more balanced attack. Again, see some of those rushers that are actually running backs, and maybe see a little bit more in the air game from Watson. But you'll still see some runs. Like, I'm not discounting that. He's got it in. He's going to still do it.
Yeah, I was looking. Alton McCaskill, I mean, he seemed like a solid runner, 6.5 yards average, only 11 carries. I feel like, do you think they're going to spread the ball around like that? Because 11 carries, I mean, seems like they could have done more with him, honestly. Now, they were behind, which is a lot of the reason why he didn't probably get as many carries as he would have liked. But do you think that the approach here is going to be kind of a run pass or a pass run from Sam Houston?
Longo likes the running backs, so I would say run pass. But you'll see a little more pass than you would think if I were to make that statement to you. Whatever's in your mind, you'll see a little more of the pass. McCaskill, interesting guy. 2021 freshman year at University of Houston, stellar season. Transfers to Colorado, all this stuff kind of gets lost in the shuffle, right? It's kind of had a renaissance game, low key for him. A lot of that yardage he got was on one drive there early in the 3rd quarter that really kept Sam in the game and led to them eventually going up. So you'll see him. You'll also see Elijah Green. I would still say you'll see the 2-back system because they want to preserve guys. They're not. A big thing with Sam Houston for their success this year is going to have to be how healthy can we stay, which is very tough college football, right? So a lot of that is going to depend on let's get some balance. But I can see a temptation though to go at a hot hand. McCaskill's he had a fantastic first game.
Yeah, I think he's a good player. I think Rebels are going to have to be careful on the run. There was our defense certainly was suspect last week, and it's weird. Oftentimes week 0 games, and this can apply just as much to Sam Houston as it can to UNLV. A lot of improvement goes from week 0 to week 1 if you have week 0 games. And sometimes, our game was rescheduled. We were originally supposed to play it in September, and now all of a sudden we're giving you guys tape and we got tape on you guys. It's going to be interesting to see what team improves in what way, because I think both of these defenses show serious signs of just problems of leaking, and so when I look, I guess from the receivers, obviously Elijah Green's the guy that had the most yards. Was there a receiver that you thought was underperforming last week that maybe you think is going to kind of jump off the stats page? I mean, you had Elijah Green at 61 yards, Grady O'Neill at 50 yards. Rayfield Lawton got 1 catch for 36 yards, which that was pretty fun. Is there a receiver that stands out to you that Rebel fans should be looking for?
How about a guy that he suited up but didn't play? Michael Phoenix. He's the guy. He and Quavez Humphreys, the 2 receivers, they've been with Sam Houston. They're one of the longer tenured Bearcats. They've been there from kind of around the FCS days, right? So I'm expecting him specifically, Phoenix, to have a good game. During the offseason, he was very excited to be running in this offense. Now, I'm not sure what led to him not playing as much, but Phil Longo, when asked about it, kind of did coach speak, but he did say Phoenix is in the 2 deep, and we did see that on the depth chart that got released. And he did say that, yeah, I would expect, quote, I expect to see more Phoenix for those who want to see him, end quote. So that is somebody that he's a big body, 6'1", 6'2" that can get into space. He just knows how to catch the ball. Last year, Sam Houston did not, it was much more of a running game, way more even so than it is now, believe it or not. But when those receivers, when Hunter threw to them, they caught everything. I can't remember too many drops. Now we saw a couple this past week, but that's this new offense. But Phoenix is one of those guys does not drop it. So kind of keep an eye on him.
Okay. Yeah. I like Quavez Humphreys. That seems like a cool name. And there's a lot of names here. I mean, a lot of people got receptions. Switching over to the defense, obviously the big names from week 1 were Alonzo Edwards and CJ Johnson. Would you say that those two guys some of the bigger names, or is there kind of an under the radar guy that maybe didn't pop out in week 0 on the stat sheet?
And let's see. Jameer Diaz. I would say Jameer Diaz, the linebacker, man, came from little tiny Glenville State, ran D2, won the defensive. The defensive Heisman Award for D2 he wanted. He helped create the turnover that led to the touchdown, the defensive touchdown for Sam Houston. If y'all remember that, he was right there involved with that play. And then I give another one, Antavius Fish, the linebacker, another linebacker. This offseason, the main thing that everyone was really worried about was the front 7, because everybody that was good on last year's front 7 was gone. You can look at North Texas. You can look at North Texas's starting defense, by the way. Lots of former Sam guys on there, but I digress. You can, but they played a lot better, and a lot of that was by those linebackers, those two guys I just mentioned.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. I mean, I think that there's opportunity for both teams. And again, I mean, we have tape, but, it still kind of feels like a mystery. So it should be a lot of fun. I guess I kind of wanted to give you a chance to ask about UNLV. I'd love to know what your thoughts about UNLV are as a program. Not a program that interacts with Sam Houston very often, but I mean, there's a little bit of connection, I guess, because you got UTEP leaving CUSA for the Mountain West, where, they had a history with the Mountain West for a long time. So that made a lot of sense. Geographically, it makes sense. But kind of what are your thoughts about UNLV, and what are your impressions of the team and the program? Kind of a big question for you, but I want to give Rebel fans the chance to hear a little bit from an outsider.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. My wife, who when we were dating a few years ago, I told her I had just came back from a long layover in Las Vegas, like 8 hours or so. The first time I'd ever been. It was at night, and we was talking how it was, and I told her just everything was a blinking light, to the point where my eyes needed to adjust when I went to the airport, which, by the way, had the smoke-filled casino in there. I loved it. I loved it. It was just so alternative, I'd always kind of, watched and followed UNLV. I'm something of a college football sicko. I cannot. Now, we talked about how UNLV used to play out 45 minutes. What was the name of that stadium? I remember.
Sam Boyd Stadium.
That logo.
Yeah, Sam Boyd Stadium, and we used to have Hey Reb, our logo, but they got rid of that during COVID when there was all the protests and stuff.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I like that. He reminded me of Yosemite Sam. That when I was young.
He was a frontiersman. Like, that's what kind of was sad. We did back in the 50s and 60s kind of have a problematic mascot that was kind of, because we're the rebels, we're the South, we're
right.
The North, the blue versus red, but they replaced him in the 80s with Hey Reb, which was that cowboy kind of logo that we had, who was like meant to address and like very and it really was unfortunate. I really felt sad that we got rid of him. And they're still kind of hoping we can bring him back someday, maybe slightly adjusted with a different backstory, because you want to be, I mean, you got considerations outside the school, but it was really unfortunate. But yeah, Vegas is crazy, man. I mean, it's very, there's no city like it in the Western Hemisphere, that's for sure.
Yeah, and then so I remember watching those games, and then you all come back and grow. Tony Sanchez, anyone? You know what I'm saying?
Oh, you would know Tony Sanchez. Yeah, he's at New Mexico State. He was a high school coach.
I got to interview him at a CUSA kickoff.
Oh, that's a blast. That's great. Yeah, he's honestly, UNLV football would not be in the position that it's in now in terms of facilities, and he played a big part in a lot of that, even if he wasn't quite ready at that time to be the coach here. Coming from high school, I mean, he's a high school coach in Vegas, and then he became the UNLV coach, and I'd give him a C-, when he was here, but he did important things for us. Okay, interesting.
Yeah. So he was cool. So and then I remember just one day, oh snap, they're playing they're playing in the Death Star. That's cool. I like that UNLV does that. I like that there are a few college teams that play we're in these pro stadiums. It kind of harkens back in the day. You can look at old YouTube TV things of when Texas A&M and UH would play in the Astrodome when the big teams would play. So that was always cool. I've always liked Dan Mullen. I've done a couple of SEC media days. Got to interview him when he was at Mississippi State with somebody named Dak Prescott as his quarterback. Got to do a lot of that. I think it's cool that Dan Mullen and Phil Longo have faced off. They faced off. What is it? 14? No, I'm sorry. 16, 17, or 17, 18. I can't quite place it. But when Phil Longo was at Ole Miss, Mullen at Mississippi State, interesting, fun stuff, right?
Yeah.
But what I saw as far as the game, there are opportunities for Sam Houston if offensively, if they can take advantage, specifically their rushers. Again, and Phil Longo talked about it again, just the running game. I think he kind of, I think he kind of sees the same thing. Just man, getting gassed. Had Idaho State not turned the ball over so much, had they just not made it that backyard game kind of tightened up, they would have won. You know what I mean? What scares me though is the offense. Is what is for UNLV. Now people will talk about Jet Thomas. He had a big game. That guy on the outside, Jaden Bradley, scares me more. Because if you go back to the Sam Houston game against Western Kentucky, as soon as Maverick McIver, the quarterback for the Hilltoppers, realized, oh, we can just beat them in man. Yeah, they were slow. Now, there's some problems that can be fixed mentally, and Sam's got a lot of those, which is fine. But that one, that's a talent problem, and that's scary because you can't really fix a talent problem in season. So I would expect I see opportunities for the passing game. And I saw Dan Mullen said, yeah, we're going to have some two quarterbacks maybe. I'm like, yeah, maybe guess from Origi, but you're going to have Anthony out there throwing it. That's who's going to be throwing the ball because that's where the home runs opportunities going to be for the Rebels,
Yeah, totally. It's an explosive offense, and Dan Mullen's a very good offensive mind. And we did lose our defensive coordinator halfway through the offseason. Zach Arnett was our defensive coordinator, who was a Mississippi State previous head coach, and now I can't remember where he is now. I think he's at App State or something. But it was really weird. There was some really weird rumors going about why he there was a rumor that he was naked in a Wendy's drive-through at 2 a.m. in Vegas, and that's why he was let go. Now, we don't know how true that is, but nobody's ever denied it. So, you never know. He was getting a Baconator. So we have a lot of Baconator signs.
He got fired over naked Baconator.
Okay. Yeah, the naked nader, so it was, I think there's a lot of great opportunity for Sam Houston here. And, this is a game I guess we can get into to kind of close off our thoughts here. I don't want to take too much of your time, although this has been outstanding, man. You're an incredible interview, and I really appreciate you. I would just say that, like, my level of confidence here, I mean, I think I like the Rebels offense so much. I think that there's so much talent on that offensive side that I feel like they could outscore Sam Houston. So I still like slightly feel okay that the Rebels could go in there and win, maybe a 60-40, 65-35 chance. I don't really do score predictions and stuff, but I feel like the Rebels can go and win. And there's some things that they're not going to be a good defense. I think Sam Houston's certainly going to score more than we're comfortable with, but that's kind of how I feel about it. Not that I'm not terrified, not that I don't believe we can lose. I think we absolutely can, especially if we play. I mean, we just have to be better than the worst defense of all time that we were last week. I mean, it's really difficult to be worse than the worst defense I've ever seen. And so I just have a hard time believing they're going to be worse than that. And that Idaho State team did have some really good receivers, and I don't know. I mean, that's kind of how I feel about it. I mean, maybe the Rebels win by a touchdown. I don't really care about spreads and stuff, but how's your feelings coming into the game? Obviously preseason, I think we felt more confident before seeing them in week 0, but sometimes that's kind of what happens. So that's my feelings about the game. How do you feel?
That's kind of where I'm at too. I did my way too early previews over the summer. So through May, June, July, this was one of the early ones, obviously. So I had that picked as a solid loss for the Bearcats of Sam Houston. So basically 2 solid touchdowns is what I had. But as this has gotten closer and we've seen, like you said, that porous defense, I'm a little more confident, but I'm still not quite ready to pick Sam Houston because the chatter is, well, there's a week now to improve, there's a week to get better. Here's the thing. The other guy, the Rebels, UNLV, they got the same opportunity now because remember, they moved the game. And it's interesting. This was supposed to be the opener for both teams. Maybe Sam Houston could have won that game. Maybe I would have picked the loss and it would have been the upset. But like you said, the fact that there's tape now on both, it just kind of throws a monkey wrench in all of this. So I'm not, maybe they'll look a little bit better, but I still have UNLV coming out with a win. There's a couple of guys from Houston on the team. I know Denver Harris. I know I can't think of linebacker. He had the interception. He was asked about some guys.
Terrence Welch or Jaheim Joseph or Marcel McDuffie, maybe. I don't know exactly.
Probably McDuffie. I think he's
our best. He's probably our best defensive player. Honestly, he's our big. We only returned 2 starters for our whole team. Jet and him, Jet Thomas and him. Those are the only 2 we brought back. So everybody else left. So
hey, you're doing better than Sam Houston. Doing a lot better.
Well, I think this is going to be a blast of a game. I do genuinely feel like it could go either way. So, I mean, I say that I think but that's only because I can't just say it's a 50-50 because that's such a cop out, so you have to say something, I guess. But I think this is a cool opportunity and I really like Sam Houston. I don't know if you've seen, but I do a conference realignment series where I cover each team in college I basically cover every team in the group of 5 and talk about their place in the future. And I hadn't been planning on doing Sam Houston, but you've inspired me. I think I'm going to cover Sam Houston on the series now because I just think it's a really fun school. It's cool. I appreciate the chance that we get to play down there, and I guess we'll see kind of we'll see what happens, man. Your guess is as good as mine. Both these teams could come out and look like world beaters, or maybe they'll both be a little worse. I mean, you never know.
Yeah.
But what? Any closing thoughts for the listeners here in Vegas? Anything else you got to say?
Oh man, think about this too. This is both teams. This stadium, the first time any of them have been in there. Now, Longo said that earlier this week, some of the staff had went through there, but one time. So, hey, we're new to this stadium, UNLV. Oh, cool. We're Sam Houston. This is our first time here too. So that's gonna just throw some more fun into it. Also, I'm not, if anyone happens to be making the trip to the game, park at the Palm Center station in Houston. Palm Center, take the train. If you can take Houston's a very car-centric city, but like a lot of them in the Southwest and East and Sunbelt, whatever. But
Vegas too.
Yeah. If you can get on a train route on that purple line, it'll take you literally right to the stadium. You can get out and look right up at it. So that's probably the easiest way. Avoid the parking, avoid that crappy construction. That's not the way to do Houston. Trust me.
Well, Houston is maybe the most infamous car city in America. I think they have the reputation. I feel like Phoenix might be just as bad, but Houston, for whatever reason, gets the big rap. But cool, man. I really, again, thank you. I really hope everybody watching this goes and subscribes to his Substack. If you have any interest in Sam Houston, this is your guy. Yeah, man, I hope the Rebels play Sam Houston again. I mean, I know we do because you guys are going to make the return trip to Vegas. So
right.
If you're here, I'd love to meet up with you, shake your hand if you're still covering the team at this point. But I think it's in 2027 or 8 or 9 or something. I'm not exactly sure when it is, but do you know when it is? Do you know when the return trip is to Vegas?
Oh man, I want to say it had gotten pushed back. I believe 2030. Possibly. It started out as 29, but I think they had rescheduled it to further out.
Wow.
Quote me on that.
Okay.
All that Mountain West alignment and Pac-12 and stuff. I'm sure, little old Sam Houston got lost in the sauce, I'm sure.
Dude, I have no idea. That you want to talk about a headache, man, that has just been a crap sandwich. But I guess wait, let me ask you this. What's your perspective on that as an outsider with because I talk to a lot of people that say that they're neutral parties, but everybody has an opinion about this and out here in the West. Do you have any thoughts about the realignment? I mean, were you I guess I want to ask you this now. I just thought of this, but do you have any extra thoughts about what you think about what's going on between the Pac-12 and the Mountain West?
2031. Talk to me in 2031. That's going to be closer to the final form of this thing. I saw the new Pac-12's got the CW deal now. I saw that, but what's it gonna mean a few years? You got to play the long game, and it's so ironic. Just it's the Pac-12 doing what it does, not playing the long game, not really seeing the future. You can go back to 2011 with this. That conference was supposed to include Texas A&M, Texas, Oklahoma, like all the better Big 12 teams. They were going to become the Pac-12. Somehow they dropped the ball on that. Imagine what that would have been in today's landscape where TV runs this. And I think the Pac-12, all these years later, they're running into the same sort of issues, just not seeing the long game, just seeing, oh, we got this short money, we can do this, and it's not, it's not gonna be sustainable, because again, you may as well just tweet at an ESPN exec and say, hey, what are you gonna do for realignment? It's all about, do they want this product? That's gonna be the question. I don't know, because the SEC they're looking like, we're just gonna take these teams, send the rest of y'all down. So Vanderbilt, all these others, just like they did with the Southwest Conference in the 90s. It's happened before. A lot of people walk around, the Northwesterns of the world, like, yeah, we're good. We're in this. Hey, Rice got left. Rice was in Texas's conference. And, University of Houston finally got back. SMU, same thing. So, 2031 is when you're going to start seeing some of that. Pac-12, once again, might end up being collateral damage in some form or fashion, in my mind.
That's always been my opinion. It seems like dumb to have two G5 conferences trying to slit each other's throats when the guys making all the money are the ones that are ultimately. But hey, that Pac-12 leadership that oversaw the death of one of the great college football conferences, they got to keep getting paid. So I mean, that's why they had to destroy the Mountain West, because they didn't want to be forced to. I refuse to believe that the reason that they did it was for anything other than the fact that they wanted to keep getting paid, and so they made a bunch of promises, and now we're in court, and they've wasted millions and millions and millions of dollars on lawyers, and this goes for both sides. I'm very grateful that we're not spending the money on the student athletes, because they are not the ones that need the money. The lawyers are the ones that need the money.
Right. Yeah.
That seems to be the approach here, and not that I have a perfect solution, but yeah, that's really great insight, man. So thank you so much for jumping on the show. Thanks for those closing thoughts. Sorry to throw that on you last minute. That was not a part of our outline, but
hey,
I hope you guys are.
I could go rapid fire all day. I could go all night with this college football stuff, but
maybe I'll have to have you on again, man. Maybe I'll have to have you on again, because I think you're one of my favorite guests I've ever had. So everybody, please make sure you subscribe to Fobs. I can't wait for this game on Friday night. Your guess is as good as mine about what's going to happen. No clue. And let's run.